The chamber stretched before Elena Kovac like a theater built for gods. 47 species sat in curved rows that rose toward a domed ceiling, painted with stars from 1,000 worlds. Each delegation had its own space designed for their particular biology. The insectoid Vrax occupied crystalline structures that hummed with their hive communications. The gaseous ethereals floated in containment fields. The massive Kronar sat on reinforced platforms that could support their rock-like bodies. Elena sat alone at the bottom of this grand amphitheater. Her chair was simple metal. Her desk was bare except for a glass of water and a data tablet. She wore a plain black suit with a small pin showing Earth's blue surface. Nothing about her appearance suggested she was about to start the biggest crisis in 12,000 years. Arbiter Genthal loomed above her on the judgment platform. The ancient insectoid's carapace gleamed under the chamber lights. 4 eyes studied Elena with the patience of a being who had lived for 3 centuries. When Genthal spoke, translation devices rendered the clicking sounds into every language present. Ambassador Kovac, this council has reviewed the matter of human expansion. We find your species has violated the Treaty of Harmonious Expansion in 23 instances. Elena did not move. She had expected this. The treaty was 12,000 years old, written before humans had even invented writing. It divided the galaxy into zones of influence, with complex rules about who could settle where. The problem was that humans had never agreed to it. High Commander Vraxis of the Vrax hegemony rose from his delegation. He was smaller than the Arbiter but moved with military precision. His mandibles clicked in anger that needed no translation. These humans have built colonies in systems that belong to the Vrax hegemony, systems we charted 5,000 years before they crawled out of their caves. They ignore our warnings. They refuse to acknowledge our historical claims. They act as if the galaxy is empty space for them to grab. Other delegates murmured agreement. The symphonic choir made harmonious sounds of support. The Dendari waved their branches in their version of nodding. Elena watched them all and said nothing. Arbiter Genthal raised a clawed hand for silence. The chamber quieted instantly. 12,000 years of tradition demanded respect for the Arbiter's authority. Ambassador Kovac, you will now respond to these charges. The Council will hear your explanation for these violations. Elena stood slowly. She was not a tall woman, but she stood straight. She looked up at the rows of alien faces, at beings who ruled empires older than human civilization. She saw their certainty. They believed this would end with human submission. They had dealt with upstart species before. Honored Arbiter, I have listened carefully to the accusations. I have reviewed the Council's demands. You want humanity to abandon 23 colonies. You want us to recognize Vrax territorial claims. You want us to cease all expansion until the Council approves our settlement plans. She paused. The chamber was absolutely silent. Every translator, every recording device, every living being was focused on this moment. I have a response to these demands. We decline. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The words hung in the air like something physical. Then the chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates leaped to their feet. The Vrax delegation buzzed so loudly their containment field vibrated. The Kronar brought their massive fists down on their platforms with booms that shook the floor. Even the peaceful symphonic choir lost their harmony, voices clashing in discord. Decline? You cannot decline. This is the Galactic Council. We do not make requests. We issue judgments. Elena remained standing, calm in the storm of outrage. She had played this moment in her mind 1,000 times. She knew what was coming. Arbiter Genthal's voice cut through the noise like a blade. The ancient insectoid's translation carried a tone of disbelief that transcended language. Ambassador Kovac, you misunderstand your position. The Galactic Council has maintained peace and order for 12,000 years. We are the highest authority in known space. You cannot simply decline. With respect, Arbiter, I understand perfectly. You are the highest authority that your member species recognize. Humanity is not a member species. We never agreed to your treaty. We never submitted to your jurisdiction. Therefore, your judgment has no authority over us. The chaos doubled. Security drones moved into position, not in response to physical threat, but simply because such disorder had never occurred in the council chamber. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate sanctions. Others called for military action. A few, very few, sat in stunned silence. Lyria of the symphonic choir was one of those few. She watched the human ambassador with curiosity rather than anger. Her species valued harmony above all things, and she wondered what could make a species choose discord so completely. Arbiter Genthal struck a gong that resonated through every translation device. The sound was designed to cut through any disturbance. Slowly the chamber quieted, the Arbiter's four eyes fixed on Elena with an intensity that had made empires fall. You are saying that humanity does not recognize the authority of this council? That is correct. And you will not comply with our judgment regarding the disputed territories? That is correct. Do you understand what you are inviting? The consequences of this position? Elena met the Arbiter's gaze without flinching. This was the moment she had been trained for. This was why Earth had chosen her, a woman who had survived wars and known the price of submission. I understand completely, Arbiter. Humanity has considered the consequences very carefully. We choose to remain free rather than accept chains, no matter how old or how respected those chains might be. The chamber fell silent again. This time the silence was different. It was the silence of species realizing that their ancient, orderly galaxy had just changed forever. Something new had entered their perfect system. Something that did not understand how to bend. Commander Vraxis spoke into the quiet, his voice filled with certainty. Then you leave us no choice. Humanity will learn to respect the Council, one way or another. Elena gathered her tablet and prepared to leave. She had said what she came to say. As she walked toward the chamber exit, she heard whispers following her. Some called her foolish. Some called her brave. Some simply wondered what kind of species would choose this path. As the door sealed behind her, Elena allowed herself one moment of doubt. Had she just saved humanity's freedom or condemned them to war? She pushed the thought away. The choice had been made long before she spoke those two words. Behind her, in the chamber of the Galactic Council, chaos continued to erupt. The emergency session began 3 hours after Elena left the council chamber. Arbiter Genthal had never called one so quickly in all his centuries of service. The chamber was fuller now. Species that usually sent junior delegates had dispatched their leaders. Everyone wanted to witness what happened next. High Commander Vraxis stood before the assembly with the confidence of someone who had never lost a war. His species had conquered 14 star systems through military might before joining the council. He believed in strength and the natural order of the strong ruling the weak. We must respond with immediate force. These humans must learn that the council's authority is not optional. We have weapons and ships they cannot imagine. A simple demonstration of power will bring them to heel. Several delegates clicked or hummed their agreement. The Kronar delegation nodded their massive heads. The ethereals pulsed with colors that meant approval in their species. But Lyria of the symphonic choir raised a delicate appendage. Her voice carried the musical quality her species was known for. Perhaps we should ask why they refused. We assumed they understood the council's authority. What if they simply do not comprehend what we are? Arbiter Genthal nodded slowly. This was why he valued Lyria. She asked questions others did not think to ask. He activated a display that showed Earth's file. The Arbiter spoke carefully. I have reviewed the initial contact reports. When humanity achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, we sent the Liaison Corps. They reported that humans seemed peaceful and compliant. But I see now we made an error. We never fully explained the Council's authority. We assumed their compliance meant understanding. The display showed images of Earth, a blue and green planet with swirling white clouds. Cities of metal and glass, ships launching from orbital stations. It looked like any other developing species. But then Genthal showed something else. Historical data about human civilization, wars that consumed entire continents, empires that rose and fell, periods where humans nearly destroyed themselves with weapons of terrible power. Unlike most species, humans had not unified peacefully. They had fought their way to the stars. On the colony world of New Nairobi, Governor James Okonkwo received the council's ultimatum with disbelief. He stood in his office looking at the message that demanded he and 30,000 colonists abandon their homes within 30 days. The colonists had spent 5 years turning a barren rock into a thriving settlement. They had built homes, planted crops in greenhouses, established schools for their children. The planet had been completely empty when they arrived. No structures, no technology, no signs anyone had ever been there. Now someone claimed they owned it because their ancestors had pointed a telescope at it 5,000 years ago. James called a town meeting. The colonists gathered in the main hall, worried and angry. A woman named Sarah Chen stood up. She was the head engineer who had designed their water systems. Are they serious? They want us to just leave? We built this place with our own hands. My daughter was born here. This is our home, others shouted agreement. The anger in the room was real and dangerous. These were not politicians or diplomats. They were farmers and engineers and teachers who had risked everything to build new lives. James raised his hands for quiet. Listen, I know this is wrong, but we need to think carefully. This council has 47 member species. They have technology and weapons we do not understand. We are one colony. We cannot fight them. An old man named Thomas Rodriguez spoke from the back. His voice was quiet, but everyone listened. Thomas had fought in Earth's resource wars. He had seen cities burn. I did not come to the stars to bow to another government. I came here to be free. If they want this planet, they can try to take it, but I will not leave willingly. The room erupted in cheers. James felt a chill run down his spine. He had his answer. The colonists would not leave. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Back in the council chamber, Arbiter Genthal continued reviewing human psychology. The data troubled him. Most species in the galaxy shared certain traits. They evolved as hive minds or pack animals or hierarchical societies. They naturally understood authority and order. Humans were different. They evolved as tribal creatures who deeply distrusted centralized control. They had a concept they called freedom that was more important to them than peace or prosperity. Throughout their history, humans had chosen to fight and die rather than submit to authority they did not choose. Lyria read the same data and felt her harmony sense tingling with warning. Arbiter, this species is fundamentally different from us. They do not value order above all else. They value something they call self-determination. The right to choose their own path even if that path leads to conflict. High Commander Vraxis made a dismissive sound. Philosophy will not matter when they face our fleet. Every species thinks they are special until they see real military power. Then they learn to be practical. But Genthal was not convinced. He had lived long enough to know that assumptions were dangerous. He ordered a review of every species that had ever refused council authority. There were only 3 cases in 12,000 years. All 3 had eventually submitted after brief shows of force. But none of those species had been quite like humans. On Earth, in a secure facility beneath the surface, military planners gathered around a holographic display of the galaxy. Captain Marcus Chen stood at the head of the table. He was commander of the Human Defense Fleet, 47 ships that were humanity's entire military presence in space. Marcus had been a test pilot before becoming a military commander. He understood ships and tactics. He also understood that humanity was vastly outnumbered and outgunned. The Council fleet numbered in the thousands. Their technology was centuries ahead of human capabilities. But Marcus also knew something the Council did not. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since first contact. They had never trusted the Council's friendly face. They had quietly built weapons and developed strategies for a war they hoped would never come. A young officer named Lieutenant Sarah Park looked worried. Sir, our projections show we cannot win a conventional war. If the Council mobilizes their full military force, we will be overwhelmed within weeks. Marcus smiled without humor. That is why we will not fight a conventional war. The Council has maintained peace for 12,000 years. They have forgotten what war really means. They think it is about fleets and territory. We know better. War is about will. It is about making the enemy question whether victory is worth the cost. He zoomed in on the disputed colonies. These are not just territory. These are our people, our homes. The Council thinks we will negotiate to save them. They are wrong. We will show them that humans do not abandon their own. We will show them that freedom is not negotiable. The officers around the table straightened. They understood now. This was not about winning in any traditional sense. This was about proving that humanity could not be forced to submit, whatever the cost. Back on Nexus Prime Station, Arbiter Genthal made his decision. He announced that the Council would impose immediate sanctions on humanity. No trade, no technology exchange. Complete isolation. In 30 days, if the disputed colonies were not evacuated, the Council would use military force to remove the human settlers. Lyria watched the vote count. Every species voted in favor except 3 small delegations who abstained. The motion passed overwhelmingly. The Council had spoken with one voice, but Lyria felt no harmony in this decision. She felt discord growing. Something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. A species had said no to the Council, and the Council, so certain in its ancient authority, was about to learn what that meant. On Earth, Elena Kovacs received the Council's decision. She read it carefully, then sent a single message to all human colonies. Stand firm. We do not abandon our own. Whatever comes next, humanity faces it together. The 30 days passed like a held breath. Across the galaxy, species watched to see what would happen when an upstart species challenged the ancient order. Many expected humanity to back down at the last moment. They were wrong. On the morning of Day 31, High Commander Vraxis led a fleet of 200 ships toward the first disputed colony. Prometheus 7 orbited a yellow star in what the Council called Sector Vrax 17. The colonists there numbered 8,000. They had ignored all evacuation orders. Vraxis felt satisfaction as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The human colony lay before them, a small cluster of domes and structures on the planet's surface. A single human defense ship held position in orbit. Just one ship against 200? The human ship transmitted a message. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Defiance. You are approaching sovereign human territory. Turn back now. Vraxis allowed himself a clicking laugh. One ship, they sent one ship. These humans truly did not understand power. He opened a channel. Captain Rodriguez, your presence here is illegal under Council authority. Stand down and prepare to evacuate your colonists. You have 1 hour to comply. The human ship did not move. It did not power down weapons. It simply waited. Vraxis felt his patience thin. Very well. If they choose to die for this rock, we will accommodate them. Then something unexpected happened. The human ship turned and accelerated away from the planet at maximum speed. It jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared. The Vrax fleet found themselves alone, facing an empty colony. Vraxis felt confusion. Had the humans abandoned their people? Had they retreated? He ordered scanners to sweep the colony. The readings showed no life signs. The entire settlement was empty. Every human was gone, but the structures remained. The power plants still generated electricity. The atmospheric processors still ran. Everything was intact, as if the colonists had simply vanished. Vraxis ordered a landing party to investigate. They would claim this territory properly and show that the Council's will could not be defied. The Vrax soldiers landed at the main colony dome. They moved through empty streets and abandoned buildings. In the central square, they found something strange, a monument that had not been there in previous scans. A simple metal pillar with words carved in multiple languages, including Vrax. The monument read, "This world was built by free people. If you have come to take it by force, know that we chose to destroy what we built, rather than let you have it. This is our answer to tyranny. This is who we are." Before the Vrax soldiers could report back to their ships, every structure on the planet activated preset explosives. The colonists had mined everything. The power plants detonated first, creating electromagnetic pulses that disabled nearby equipment. Then the domes exploded one after another. The fusion reactors went critical in a chain reaction. The Vrax fleet watched in horror as the entire colony turned into a massive fireball. Every building, every piece of infrastructure, everything the colonists had built over 5 years was destroyed in minutes. The soldiers on the surface never had a chance to escape. High Commander Vraxis stared at the burning planet. His mandibles clicked in disbelief. They destroyed their own colony. They killed my soldiers with a trap. These humans are insane. But the message from humanity was clear. If you want our worlds, you will inherit ashes. Nothing more. The same scene played out across all 23 disputed colonies over the next 3 days. Human colonists evacuated. They left monuments with defiant messages. Then they destroyed everything they had built. Entire settlements were reduced to smoking craters. The Council fleet lost over 300 soldiers in the traps. Every planet they came to claim was worthless. Buildings destroyed. Equipment sabotaged. Even the soil was sometimes salted to prevent easy farming. The humans practiced a doctrine of total destruction. In the Council chamber, delegates watched the reports with growing unease. Lyria of the symphonic choir spoke the thought many were feeling. This is not how civilized species behave. They would rather destroy than surrender. What kind of beings are we dealing with? Arbiter Genthal felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. The Council had expected compliance or resistance. They had not expected this third option. Humans had chosen to deny the Council its victory, while paying the terrible price of losing their own colonies. High Commander Vraxis demanded action. His voice shook with rage. We have claimed the planets, but we have paid in blood for worthless rocks. This cannot stand. We must strike at the heart of humanity. We must attack Earth itself. Some delegates murmured agreement. Others looked troubled. Attacking Earth meant escalating from a border dispute to full war. It meant thousands or millions of casualties. It meant crossing a line the Council had not crossed in 8,000 years. But Vraxis pressed his point. These humans respect only strength. They must learn that defying the Council has consequences. A demonstration of overwhelming force at their homeworld will break their will to resist. The vote was closer this time. Many species abstained, but enough voted yes to authorize military action. A Council fleet of 300 ships would proceed to Earth's solar system. They would demand humanity's immediate compliance with all Council judgments. If humanity refused, the fleet was authorized to use force. On Earth, Captain Marcus Chen received word that the Council fleet was coming. He stood in the command center beneath Geneva, surrounded by tactical displays showing the positions of all human ships. 47 vessels to face 300. The math was brutally simple. His officers waited for orders. Some looked scared. Others looked determined. All of them knew they were facing impossible odds. But they also knew what was at stake. If humanity surrendered now, they would be subject to Council authority forever. They would never be truly free. Marcus activated the communication system that connected to every human ship, every colony, every settlement in space. "This is Captain Chen. The Council fleet is coming to force our submission. They believe our destruction of the colonies means we are broken. They are wrong. Those colonists chose to destroy what they built rather than let it be taken. They are now safe on other worlds and they stand with us." He paused, gathering his thoughts. Humanity has faced extinction many times. Ice ages, plagues, wars that burned entire continents. We survived because we refused to give up. We fought when fighting seemed pointless. We endured when endurance seemed impossible. That is who we are. His voice grew stronger. The Council fleet is larger. Their technology is better. By every measure, they should win. But they have forgotten something that we remember. War is not about technology or numbers. War is about will. It is about making the enemy question whether victory is worth the cost. And humanity, more than any species in this galaxy, understands the cost of freedom. Across human space, on ships and stations and colonies, people listened. They felt fear. But they also felt something else: pride, determination, the knowledge that they were part of something larger than themselves. Marcus gave his final orders. All ships will proceed to defensive positions around Earth. We will not attack first. But if they fire on our homeworld, we will show them what humanity does when you threaten our families. Activate Protocol Defiance. Around Earth and throughout the solar system, hidden weapons platforms came online. Weapons that humanity had built in secret over 50 years. Weapons the Council did not know existed. Weapons that might not be enough to win, but would certainly make the Council pay a terrible price. The stage was set. In 3 days, the Council fleet would arrive, and humanity would face its greatest test. The Council fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system exactly on schedule. 300 ships arranged in perfect formation. High Commander Vraxis stood on the bridge of his flagship, viewing the blue planet in the distance. So small, so fragile, and yet these humans thought they could defy the will of 47 civilizations. The human defense fleet waited in orbit around Earth. 47 ships spread thin trying to protect their homeworld. Vraxis performed the tactical calculations automatically. His fleet could overwhelm the humans in minutes. This would be over quickly. He opened a communication channel that broadcast to all human vessels. "This is High Commander Vraxis of the Vrax Hegemony, acting under the authority of the Galactic Council. Humanity has violated Council law and refused all peaceful resolution. You have one final chance to comply. Acknowledge Council authority. Cease all unauthorized expansion. Submit to Council judgment. You have 1 standard hour to respond." On Earth in the command center, Captain Marcus Chen listened to the ultimatum. Around him, officers monitored displays showing the Council fleet positions. The enemy had numbers and technology, but they had come to the wrong system if they thought that would be enough. Marcus opened the response channel. "Commander Vraxis, this is Captain Chen of Earth Defense Command. We received your ultimatum. Here is our answer." No. The simplicity of the response shocked the Council fleet. After everything, after the destroyed colonies, after the deaths, humanity still refused. Vraxis felt his patience snap. "Then you have chosen extinction. All ships prepare to fire. Target the human fleet first, then orbital stations." The Council ships charged their weapons. Energy readings spiked across 300 vessels. Vraxis raised his claw to give the order to fire, and then the solar system came alive. Hidden weapons platforms activated throughout the system. On asteroids, on moons, inside hollowed-out comets. Hundreds of them, each one a surprise. Each one targeting a Council ship. The platforms fired simultaneously. The weapons were unlike anything the Council had seen. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Missiles with warheads that burned hotter than stars. Directed energy beams that cut through shields. And something else. Something that made the Council sensors scream warnings. The Council fleet's shields absorbed most of the first barrage, but not all. 15 ships took critical damage. 3 exploded outright. The perfect formation broke as ships maneuvered to defend themselves. Vraxus stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Where did these weapons come from? How did we not know about this? The human ships did not wait to press their advantage. They attacked with tactics the Council had never encountered. Instead of fleet formations, each human ship operated independently. They used the planets and moons as cover. They fired and moved before the Council could target them effectively. They attacked like wolves, not like an army. One human ship, the Defiance, came straight at the Council line. It was the same ship that had fled from Prometheus 7. The Vrax vessels focused fire on it, determined to destroy it. The Defiance's shields failed. Its hull was breached. But instead of retreating, it accelerated. The ship rammed directly into a Vrax heavy cruiser at near light speed. Both vessels vaporized instantly. The explosion took out 2 more Council ships that were too close. The human ship had sacrificed itself deliberately, trading 1 for 3. Vraxus felt something cold in his chest. They are willing to die. Not just willing. They use death as a weapon. What kind of species does this? The battle spread throughout the solar system. Human ships led Council vessels into trap zones where the hidden weapons platforms could ambush them. They fought in ways that showed they had studied Council tactics and found the weaknesses. They did not fight to win. They fought to make every Council victory as costly as possible. On the surface of Mars, Council Marines landed to secure what they thought was a human military base. Instead, they found civilians, miners and their families who refused to evacuate. When the Council forces tried to take them prisoner, the miners fought back with mining equipment and improvised weapons. One miner, a woman named Rivera, died holding a tunnel collapse long enough for others to escape. Her last transmission was broadcast across the system. Tell Earth we did not surrender. Tell them Mars stands with humanity. Back in Council space on Nexus Prime Station, Arbiter Genthal watched the battle reports with growing horror. The Council fleet was winning. They were destroying human ships and installations. But the cost was far higher than anyone had predicted. Over 50 Council ships had been destroyed or damaged. Thousands of soldiers were dead, and the humans kept fighting. Every ship that was crippled fired until its weapons failed. Every station that was boarded fought to the last defender. One human soldier, surrounded and out of ammunition, detonated the fusion reactor in his environmental suit. The explosion killed him and the entire Vrax boarding party. Lyria of the Symphonic Choir watched the same reports. Her musical voice was quiet when she spoke to the other delegates. We are watching something we have never seen before. We are watching a species that would rather die free than live in chains. Every battle report proves it. They are not fighting to win. They are fighting to show us the price of trying to rule them. Other delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some species were beginning to question whether this war was worth fighting, the younger civilizations especially. They remembered their own struggles for independence before joining the Council. They wondered if they had made the right choice in giving up their sovereignty. The delegate from the Meridian Coalition stood. Her species had joined the Council only 300 years ago. Arbiter, I must speak. My people watch these events with great concern. We remember when we were told that joining the Council was voluntary. Now we see what happens to species that refuse. Is this the peace and harmony we were promised? Is this the enlightened civilization we represent? Other delegates began voicing similar concerns. 2 minor species announced they were withdrawing their ships from the operation. They would not participate in what increasingly looked like conquest rather than peacekeeping. The cracks in Council unity were growing. In the Sol system, High Commander Vraxus faced a choice. His fleet could still win. They could destroy the human defense forces. They could bombard Earth from orbit, but the cost would be enormous. And then what? The humans would never truly submit. They had proven that. Every victory would require constant occupation. Every planet would require permanent military presence. The war would never really end. Vraxus opened a secure channel to Arbiter Genthal. Arbiter, I recommend we reconsider our position. The humans cannot defeat us militarily, but they can make victory meaningless. Every meter of space we take costs us ships and lives. If we continue, we may win the battle but lose the Council. Already member species are questioning our authority. Genthal listened to his commander. He looked at the casualty reports. He thought about 12,000 years of peace maintained through respect for council authority. And he realized that authority meant nothing if it required constant force to maintain. The ancient arbiter made a decision that would change the galaxy. He activated the emergency recall signal. All council ships were ordered to cease fire and withdraw to neutral space. The battle for Earth was over. Captain Marcus Chen watched the council fleet pull back. His own fleet was battered. 23 human ships were destroyed. Thousands of soldiers and civilians were dead, but they had not surrendered. They had forced the mighty Galactic Council to blink first. Marcus opened a channel to all remaining human forces. Ceasefire. The Council is withdrawing. We have shown them what it costs to threaten humanity. We have proven that some species cannot be forced to submit. In the silence after the battle, both sides counted their losses and wondered what would come next. 2 weeks after the Battle of Sol, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. But this time everything was different. The chamber that had seen 12,000 years of orderly proceedings was now filled with tension and doubt. Delegates who had once spoken with unified purpose now argued among themselves. Arbiter Genthal stood before them, older somehow despite his long life. He had spent these 2 weeks reviewing records, not just of humanity but of the Council itself. What he found troubled him deeply. The ancient arbiter activated a display. Honored delegates, I have uncovered information that requires disclosure. Before we discuss what to do about humanity, we must face an uncomfortable truth about ourselves. The chamber quieted. Genthal continued. I reviewed the Council's founding documents and early history. What I found was disturbing. There were not 47 founding species. There were 53. Confused murmurs spread through the chamber. Lyria of the symphonic choir leaned forward. Arbiter, what happened to the other 6 species? Genthal's voice was heavy. They refused to fully submit to Council authority. They wanted to maintain some independence. The Council, believing its own authority was absolute and necessary for peace, forced them to integrate completely. 3 species accepted eventually. 2 left Council space entirely to avoid submission. And 1 was absorbed so completely that its culture no longer exists as a separate identity. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded proof. Others sat in shocked silence. Lyria felt her harmony sense shatter. The Council she had believed in, the organization built on peace and cooperation, had been founded on forced compliance. A delegate from the Meridian Coalition stood, her voice shaking with anger. You are saying we are not a voluntary association of free species? You are saying we are an empire that forces compliance and calls it peace? Genthal nodded slowly. I am saying that over 12,000 years, we forgot the difference between authority and legitimacy. We assumed our age gave us the right to rule. The humans have shown us we were wrong. Authority without consent is not order. It is tyranny. High Commander Vraxis stood, his voice harsh. This changes nothing. We are still the most powerful force in the galaxy. The humans may have survived 1 battle, but they cannot stand against us forever. But this time, other voices challenged him. A delegate from the young species of the Outer Rim spoke. Perhaps the question is not whether we can defeat humanity. Perhaps the question is whether we should. What did we gain from this conflict? Dead soldiers, destroyed ships, and respect from no one. The humans showed us that forced submission breeds only resistance. More delegates joined the discussion. Species that had been silent for centuries found their voices. They questioned the Council's authority. They asked why member species needed permission to expand into empty space. They wondered if the peace they enjoyed was real peace or just the absence of anyone strong enough to resist. Lyria stood and sang a note that cut through the chaos. Her voice carried harmonics that made everyone stop and listen. We stand at a choice point. We can continue as we are, enforcing our will through strength and calling it law, or we can change. We can become what we claimed to be all along, a true association of free species working together by choice, not by force. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Arbiter Genthal called for proposals. What was needed was not just peace with humanity, but reformation of the Council itself. On Earth, Ambassador Elena Kovac received an unexpected message. The Council requested her presence for negotiations, not to demand surrender but to discuss a new framework for galactic relations. Elena was suspicious but agreed to attend. She arrived at a neutral station orbiting a dead star. The Council had sent Arbiter Genthal and Lyria, along with representatives from several younger species. Notably absent was High Commander Vraxis. Genthal spoke first. Ambassador Kovac, I owe you an apology. The Council made assumptions about humanity. We assumed compliance meant agreement. We assumed our authority was self-evident. We were wrong. Elena kept her expression neutral. Go on, the Arbiter continued. Your refusal to negotiate forced us to examine ourselves. What we found was uncomfortable. The Council has become what it was meant to prevent. A power that rules through force rather than consent. Your species taught us an important lesson. True authority must be earned, not demanded. Lyria added her musical voice. We propose a new treaty, not the treaty of harmonious expansion that you never agreed to. Something new. The Accord of Sovereign Systems. Each species maintains complete sovereignty. The Council becomes a forum for cooperation, not a government. Member species can leave at any time. Disputes are resolved through mediation, not force. Elena studied the document they presented. It was everything humanity had wanted from the beginning. Recognition of sovereign rights. Freedom to expand and settle as they chose. Protection under law without submission to external authority. It seemed too good to be true. What is the catch? Elena asked. Genthal clicked in what might have been a laugh. The catch is that 20 member species have already said they will adopt this framework regardless of what the Council decides. Your defiance inspired others. The choice is whether the Council adapts or becomes irrelevant. Elena read the document carefully. It was genuine. The Council was reforming itself, and humanity's refusal to submit had been the catalyst. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders. What about the disputed colonies? She asked. They are recognized as human territory. The Vrax claims are formally withdrawn. We also offer compensation for the ships and lives lost in the conflict. Elena looked at the aliens across the table. They had come to conquer and had learned humility instead. She thought about the colonists who had destroyed their own homes rather than surrender them. About Captain Rodriguez who had died ramming an enemy ship. About all the humans who had chosen freedom over safety. I will take this proposal to Earth. But I can tell you now that humanity did not fight to be left alone. We fought to be respected. This accord respects sovereignty. That is all we ever wanted. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Details were refined. Protections were strengthened. In the end, 42 species signed the Accord of Sovereign Systems. 5 species refused and withdrew from the Council entirely, choosing isolation. High Commander Vraxis resigned in protest, unable to accept a council without absolute authority. The galaxy had changed. The old order of enforced peace gave way to something messier but more honest. A system where species could disagree without one side forcing the other to submit. Where sovereignty meant something more than a word in a treaty. On Earth, Elena stood before a crowd gathered to hear the results. Behind her, the blue planet turned slowly in space. She thought about how close humanity had come to extinction. How they had chosen principle over survival, and somehow survived anyway. She gave her report simply. Humanity is recognized as sovereign and free. Our colonies are ours. Our choices are ours. We did not win by being stronger. We won by refusing to accept that strength determines right. We showed the galaxy that some things are worth dying for, and in doing so, we taught them that some things are worth living for too. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Elena felt no triumph. Only relief, and a quiet pride that humanity had faced the greatest power in the galaxy and had not blinked. Months later, Lyria visited Earth as part of a cultural exchange. She walked through the rebuilt streets of Geneva and marveled at human resilience. Everywhere she looked, she saw memorials to those who died. But she also saw life continuing. Humans did not dwell on their sacrifices. They honored them and moved forward. She met Elena for tea in a garden overlooking the city. The human woman looked tired but content. Lyria sang a soft note of harmony. Your species changed the galaxy. Did you know that would happen when you said those 2 words in the council chamber? Elena smiled. I knew something would change. Either the council would break us or we would break the council. I'm glad it turned out to be the second option. Lyria thought about that. Your refusal was not about territory or power. It was about principle. About the right to say no. We had forgotten that such a right exists. You reminded us. They sat in comfortable silence, watching humans go about their lives. Building. Creating. Moving forward. Always forward. Finally, Elena spoke. You asked if I knew what would happen. The truth is I did not, but I knew what would happen if we said yes. We would become subjects instead of citizens. We would trade freedom for security, and humanity learned long ago that such trades are never worth the cost. Lyria hummed in understanding. And now the galaxy is learning the same lesson. Freedom is messy. It leads to conflict and disagreement. But it is the only foundation that allows true cooperation. Your chaos in our ordered chamber was exactly what we needed. Elena raised her cup in a toast. To chaos, then. And to the galaxy, learning that order without freedom is just another word for tyranny. Lyria touched her cup to Elena's. To chaos. And to the humans who taught us that sometimes the best answer to an ultimatum is simply to decline. Above them, ships from a dozen species arrived and departed from Earth's orbital stations. The galaxy was changing, and at the center of that change was a species that had learned long ago that freedom is not given. It is taken, and once taken it must be defended at any cost.